Wednesday, and you know what Wednesday is. You're here with me, Wendy Stuart, your host on If These Walls Could Talk. I hope everyone's having a great day today. And I'm sure you noticed I'm here by myself again. Oh, it gets so lonely when you reach the top. However, as you all know, Tym Moss is doing a wonderful show in Florida, Little House on the Ferry. Go to his website. You can read about it, and he is selling tickets. If you're tuning in from Florida, please go support Tym. And we miss him madly. So I hope everyone has had a really good couple of days. I always use that as my segue to tell you about something fabulous that I did. I'm a member of the Imperial Court of New York. And if you know about that organization, we are totally philanthropic. We give wonderful events, usually in drag, to raise money for incredible causes. And we just did our 80s show at Industry Bar. It was phenomenal. Alexis Flame and Tony Holmperm were our hosts, and the benefits of that show all went to the Tyler Clemente Foundation. Jane Clemente joins us at all of the events that we raise money for that foundation. And it feels so good to give back. It feels good to give back because, my gosh, you know, my husband is really taken to watching the streaming news channels. And I have to tell you, I listened to that for like 15 minutes and I can't because all of us have to remember, we've got to get up each day. This is our life. We own it. We've got to move forward and we've got to make good things happen, right? So that's why we all do what we do. So with that being said, okay, I'm super excited today. You all know that I am a member of the Explorers Club, and I've been dying to do this for the longest time. We have incredible people at the Explorers Club. There's only 3,400 people in the world that are members. Well, that number ebbs and flows, but they all are doing extraordinary things. And for the longest time, I've been saying, okay, I have this wonderful entertainment show, but why can't exploration be entertainment? Well, of course it can. You know, some of your channels like Discovery and the Science Channel, they know that, okay? So I have an incredible guest with me today. He's an adventurer, an explorer, a fellow with the Explorers Club. He hosts Unexplained and Unexplored on the Science Channel. And in August, he is going to do his first open water swim from Canada to Greenland. Why, you ask? To raise awareness about the Inuit people. But you know what? More than that, I could be sitting here talking about all the incredible things that he has done. He is fierce. He is fearless. And most of all, he is a heck of a lot of fun. Meet Justin Fornal. Come on in to our little studio. Really great to have you here today. Thanks so much for coming. Oh my God, this is so great. I like your colors.
Thank you.
We're feeling really colorful today, right? It's May, it's almost Memorial Day
it's
weekend.
Getting colorful and bright and magenta
and magenta and all the good things in the world. I love watching us here because you're one of the first guests I've had on that's like a lot taller than me. I better sit myself up in this seat and lean forward. Justin, just reading about you it's so exciting. And I'll tell you why. You there's no stone that you don't leave untouched. There's a million things I could talk to you about, of course. And I'm sure many people have, but I want to, Ethiopia has always had a very big place in my heart.
Very special, yeah.
I filmed there, and the northern part of Ethiopia, Lalibela, where the churches are, and they're into the ground, the churches, or some of them are so high up in the northern part of Ethiopia. My God, you're like a cliff dweller to get there, right?
Absolutely.
You decided one of your shows on Unexplained and Unexplored would be on, I always say this wrong, the Covenant of the Ark. I've been calling
Ark
it
of the Covenant.
Ark of the Covenant, right? Yeah. I was calling it the Convent of the Ark. I was even calling it that over there. No wonder they looked at me a little strange. I'm like, absolutely. Where's the Convent of the Ark? That was such a fascinating expedition that you did. What was your thinking behind wanting to do that?
Well, certainly, I think, when you start to peel back the layers of history, you have so many stories that people haven't even heard about.
Right.
But the Ark of the Covenant, in specifically something that at least most people have heard about through things like Indiana Jones and films and stories.
Indiana Jones, right.
So it is kind of a nice entryway for people. But I think what a lot of people don't know is that the Ark of the Covenant, as opposed to just being an ancient, really relic associated with Judaism, is absolutely central to Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity. And
But
it is
right.
It is absolutely at the centerpiece of that religion.
Most people do not know that. And they also don't know that it was the cornerstone of Judaism coming from Jerusalem.
Absolutely, yeah.
And ending up in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
How the heck did that happen? That's what I call off the beaten path.
What's very interesting, especially with Ethiopia, just in general, the one thing I do want to say is, it being one of my favorite countries on the continent, the motherland, is because it has such its own identity. And even if you look at a global religion like Christianity, the Christianity in Ethiopia is very Ethiopian.
Yes.
This is not, it does not come across as something that was forced by colonialism and pushing out the older religions.
It's pure.
This
it's
is
very
an
pure
Ethiopian
to Ethiopia.
form of Christianity.
Yeah.
But one of the beginning of the Ethiopian kind of the dynasty of the emperors that ended with Haile Selassie was that Melanik, his mother, Queen of Sheba, met with with the ancient, went up and met with the ancient King Solomon.
Right.
And they gave birth to this child.
We're going way back. We're going back to the time of King Solomon. I've never done
and
that.
I'm going to stop
no,
there because
it's like a historian.
This could, each one of these things could be a 1 hour rabbit hole.
Right,
So.
it's right. It is, but we're going down the rabbit hole today.
I'm
I
stopping
promise you that.
myself.
No,
I'm
we love
stopping
the rabbit
myself.
hole. But okay, here's what was so interesting to me about watching the show that you did on it. You, everybody that you talked to, said that they had the covenant, every single one, every single person in Ethiopia. And if you've traveled to Africa and you know this, every person you talk to tells you that they've got the thing that you're looking for.
Right.
Every person told you that.
They did, but at the same time, it in a way it is true. And if we think about something being strictly a historic relic, like a piece, and I'm not saying this religion or that religion, but a piece of the cross that perhaps Jesus was crucified.
Got it, right.
Or part Moses' staff.
Right.
That you have the actual historic piece, the true thing that is 2,000 years old, 3,000 years old. But then you have the other element that's taken on that spiritual identity. And it could have taken that on 1,000 years ago.
Right.
And there's no one between there and here to say that this is not the true Ark of the Covenant.
Okay, you just went down a big rabbit hole, because right now you've taken, and I love this, you've taken a piece of tangible history.
Yes.
But you said if a person culturally assigns a spiritual meaning to an object, that could make it as real as the actual object, because who knows?
Absolutely.
So as a historian, how do you know that what you're documenting is the real thing?
That's you just, there's very few ways to actually know.
Right.
And in Ethiopia, the Ark of the Covenant is more important now in Ethiopia in the everyday spiritual worship than it is in anywhere else in the world. So who is anyone else to say the true Ark is not there? Because in Judaism, in a lot of other religions, the Ark is really just a part of the Old Testament. It's a part of history.
Right.
It's not something that we acknowledge every day.
Right.
So that's why in Ethiopia, the true Ark of the Covenant, it is said it is in Aksum, in the state of Tigray, in this church that we're not allowed to go into. And even if physically that is not what Moses brought out of Egypt and was went on this journey for thousands of years, it is just as important as if it had.
Right.
Because to the rest of it, it's just a relic.
Because but they're worshiping it.
They're worshiping it.
So to your point, I mean, are things just a relic, or the minute we assign a spiritual belief to something, does it give it more importance? Let's take it one step further, because I get into these Bible discussions with everybody. How do we know, what is real? What is real? Is it history that's passed down and adjusted according to somebody's belief?
To go down an interesting rabbit hole, one of the things we relating directly to what you're saying.
Right.
I've been assigned a very interesting case to one of the things I was very fortunate to do was to track down the skull of Nat Turner, who led the most successful slave rebellion in American history, get it from the person who had it, returned it to the descendants, to the family members.
And I have to ask, what made that particular story so interesting to you?
We were doing a documentary for National Geographic about it, and I got a call on a Saturday night. Would you help produce this documentary about the legacy of Nat Turner? And this was when the film came out. Birth of a Nation.
Yes.
And
this was 2016.
Yes, it was. Okay. And that night, as I usually do, I went to my office, I had a whiskey or two, and I just went and just started the research.
It's all about the whiskey you're doing. We'll get to that later. Whiskey is pivotal if you're an explorer. Okay, go on.
But I also think it's about if you want to really it's got to be a Saturday night or a night when you're like, you're doing this because you want to do it. This is not work. The work, we never clock out. And from what I read, the skull had been missing, and it was alleged that this individual had it. And that became the obsession. Getting it to the descendants, getting to the family.
The individual that had it, I mean, they had stolen it, or had it been passed down to them? What was the story behind?
Once again, it's a very long story, but there's a great, if you look up Nat Turner's skull, National Geographic, I wrote an article that traces where all the hands that the skull was passed to, the relic was passed to. But the reason I'm saying this is this led to another case that I've been working on for quite a few years, and that is the skull of the Native American leader, Geronimo.
Get out.
Which it is believed that in 1918, one of the Bushes, the great-grandfather of George W.
Bush,
actually went to his grave site at Fort Sill with other members of the Skull and Bones Secret Society out of Yale, and took the skull from the ground with two femurs and brought it back to the tombs in New Haven on Yale University.
So this is really bad stuff. They stole the skull.
Yes, Prescott Bush, right. So all my the descendants of Geronimo contacted me after the Nat Turner case and said, would you help us get this relic back? And I said, absolutely, 110%. So all the research I've been doing shows that the skull that they took, they did believe it was Geronimo, but due to where they took it and how the tomb was described, there's a good chance it was someone else.
But let me ask you something, and you're far more knowledgeable than I am with this. With all the DNA testing, couldn't they have done the testing to see? Can they do it?
If they will give us the skull and they will admit to having a skull, absolutely we'll be able to prove or disprove who that is.
Right,
who that is. But what this comes down to is, if it's technically not Geronimo's skull, is it worth fighting to get it back? And I say yes, because it was stolen and taken with the intention that this is the great Geronimo, and it was used over the last 100 years saying this is Geronimo's skull.
Inappropriately.
With the disrespect, with whatever it was, and with the family, when they found out about this, them knowing. So, of course, it could be like, oh, well, I just found this at a flea market. No, you owned it with the intention of this being this human. You know, maybe it's an effigy. It'd be like someone taking a picture of you and using it in a negative way.
They have, believe me, with social media, it happens all the time. But I totally understand what you're saying. It interests me that you are such a cultural detective. And what is it within you that makes you want to right the wrong? The wrong happened, you want to make it right. Why have you taken on this mantle?
I think because it will keep me up at night and it becomes an obsession. And I don't, just personally, and it's a great question you ask. In my heart, I don't tolerate bullies of any sort.
Love it.
And bullies can be historic. And I've been, comfortable enough with any kind of confrontation throughout my life that if I see someone being picked on, or even in a bigger level, I physically, mentally, whatever, I'm going to act on it because of my honor. I cannot sit back.
You're the person that they say, if you see something, say something. You're going to be the one that's you're going to say something.
No, I'm going to do something.
Yeah, you're going to do.
Who am I going to say it to?
Got it.
I'm going to call a number so they can.
You're just going to do something.
I'm going to do something.
Justin, were you raised a certain way, or this is just in you? I mean, do you take after a grandparent, or because what you're describing, there's not a ton of people that do that.
I don't know.
It is amazing that you want to go back in history with things that people have forgotten, and you want to make it right.
We'll do our best.
I love that.
But it's so much of this stuff, nobody cares, and it just gets swept under the rug, and people get high. They get drunk. But people get high, and everybody wants to talk shit. Everybody wants to puff up their chest.
Right.
Then comes Monday, it's like, are we going to ride? And everyone else is like, well I don't. We should put. Everybody forgets about it, and that's how you get results. Is if it keeps you up at night, and it's like you're seething until you right this wrong, or at least come to a conclusion about this situation. If you don't get obsessed, don't start.
I love it. And I would say that your obsession is passion. It's part of the passion of you for everything that I have learned about you. When you were a kid, were you an explorer then? You were a defender, you've already said it, but were you an explorer? When did that all happen for you?
just another kind of funny. Yeah, it's just a funny, silly question.
I have fun. I'm loaded with funny, silly questions.
No, they're great, but they're very personal, and it's.
Yeah, well, You know what? You're Justin the person, and when I said to him, I could have a 5-hour show on this guy or more because of all the incredible things you've done. And on this show, we really want to highlight people that have done extraordinary things. Why did they do them? So did you, as a kid, you said you grew up in rural Connecticut?
Grew up in rural Connecticut in the woods. And because my dad had grew up in the city and wanted to be where he could.
Oh, that's interesting. So
have rusty cars and blow things up and wanted, privacy. And
right.
So no, but I loved exploring and eating anything I could find, whether it was an insect or a plant.
Okay, wait a minute. You can't gloss over that. That's what I love about people from the Explorers Club. A lot of them eat insects and they'll talk about it in a dialogue and they'll just keep it part of the dialogue. You, as a young child, you could eat an insect and you didn't think anything,
I just wanted to experience the world anyway.
Curiosity.
And smell and touch and taste. Certainly made sense. And, my mother took me to, the little local emergency room several times because I'd come back
right.
from the edge of the stone wall hat with, berries on my something. And she'd be like, what did you eat? What did you eat? And
were you the kid that was always, you were that kid then?
Absolutely.
You have siblings?
Yes. I have one older sister.
But she wasn't that. She was easy.
She was very the opposite. I mean, she's
I knew she was
very
easy,
much an explorer,
right?
very much, but very different, very by the book, following rules. And I think that's been the ongoing joke.
Justin doesn't follow rules. You even without meeting him, when you go to his website and you read about all the things he's doing, you don't follow rules. So I am going to circle back, of course, to the Ark because I want to talk more about that. Mm-hmm. How you really did hold your cool, but was it frustrating to you? You're going all over Ethiopia and everyone's telling you they've got the Ark, but they can't show it to you. How do you deal with that?
Well, I knew that going in, and the one thing to understand is when we're making a show for something like Science Channel, Discovery Channel, you're on a tight schedule. Unfortunately, I don't want to be on a tight schedule, which is why we've started our organization to take our time doing these. Right. You can't rush in for 2 weeks and expect the entire country to cooperate with you just because you're coming from the US, you have cameras. It's like, piss off. Like, this is our world, our life. We were lucky to be there. So to me, the most important was just being respectful and making those friends and then going back. Go back 5 times, and then slowly you make those relationships.
Right. And
I think that's what's most wrong with TV and entertainment, TV especially, is they call up and be like, hey, we're calling from, we're going to make a show. And it's like, these are individuals' entire lives. And we're going to come in and we want to say, hey, I know you found this thing and you spent 20 years finding it. We want to film it. Don't you want to film it?
And excuse me, we're this channel and we're that channel. Right. And Justin brought up, you know what? We're down another rabbit hole, but I love you for saying this. You really brought up, you have such respect for culture. You've got such respect for the people. That's very obvious. And a lot of the time in media, they come in with cameras blazing. And the person, you're right, it's their job. They're protecting the Ark. They believe in it. It's their culture. And you cannot come in and start exploiting people that way.
Exactly. And that's a hard line that I draw with any product. And that's the reason. One reason I just continue to kind of shy away from television in general is you go in there and there's not enough sensitivity in approaching other countries and other cultures in a way that you have to go there and really bow down. This is their turf. Just because we have the fucking cameras and whatever, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. You have to. And so I said, I have much more respect for a monk in Ethiopia who's living in the mountains than some douchebag television exec in Los Angeles.
I love it. Douchebag television exec. We've had everything said here. Haven't heard that one yet. Totally love it. No, I completely love your commitment and that you are dancing to your own drum. You're just going to do what you believe in. That was very obvious, though, in that piece that you made. You and who was your co-host on that?
Emiliano Rupert. Great guy.
Emiliano. Such respect that you looked at every single one of these people that told you they didn't have the Ark. Nobody had the Ark. Let me tell you, when you're shooting on location like that, and I've done it with tribal people in Ethiopia, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're getting bitten up. Sometimes your stomach doesn't feel great, and sometimes the conditions are terrible. These guys not only kept going, your interest gets more and more piqued, right? When you're watching what they're doing, your determination and the way you depicted the people, you showed their sincerity and their reaction to you knocking on their door saying, hey, You got it?
Well, you have these isolated places, and if the Ark is
Isolate, yeah.
if the Ark is more than a historic relic, if it is something that has this magnitude of almost nuclear power, then
love that, right?
Then if it really is what people believe it is historically and scientifically, then it is something that you would want to hide.
Right.
It's something you would not want to fall into a despotic leader's hands and be able to use it in the wrong way.
Exactly. And you just hit on something, because you have given the spiritual meaning to relic, right? What's a relic? What do we think of with a relic? It's an old thing. Oh, it's a relic of your grandfather's. Oh, it's a relic from when you infuse the relic with spirituality, it becomes another thing. And you and I are on the same wavelength, but I get into this argument all the time with people, especially scientific people, that, you know, a relic can't have a life, it can't have a spirituality. I believe that if the person believes in the life of the object that they have, then you brought it to life. Then it's not just a relic. You've assigned a meaning to it, a meaning bigger than the actual piece itself.
Absolutely. And a lot of my field research has been about talismans, talismanic items, amulets, and you know, with things like voodoo and Yoruba, we don't know which one of these processes of, you know, opening a spiritual gate or empowering, you know, some type of item with all their intention, with all their power, works or doesn't work.
Right.
Who's to say that if you were to take a piece of lapis and pray over it for a year, that it wouldn't hold some type of energy that
okay, and now you're into energy. But before we go any further, because I could go on a million tangents with Justin, I do want to show the clip of the show in Ethiopia. Okay, Unexplained and Unexplored. And what was that segment called?
This was Finding the Ark of the Covenant.
Finding the Ark of the Covenant.
And shout out to all of our partners in Ethiopia.
Beautiful. I love this. We are on.
Separating us from the entrance to this church, there's essentially a narrow ledge off the side of this cliff with 1,000-foot drop. One false step and you're done. The only thing to do is to brave and just go for it. Look at this. This is the church. This is no.
Hello.
Salam.
Welcome to our church.
May we come in?
Yes, please.
Please, thank you. Wow, this is incredible. As you walk into this place, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. The walls are covered in these gorgeous illustrations. It smells like incense. I mean, this place is ancient. It's mystical. This would be the perfect place to hide the Ark. We've traveled a long, long way to get here. We've been seeking the Ark of the Covenant.
We're seeing if the possibility that it might be here in this church.
እንተን ደብልዮም ብጣዕሚ ክብሪ ይሃበልና ንሕና ከዓ
ሕፅርን ቤቱና መጻጻ እንብኡ ነይርዋ
the Ark is not here.
Is there any chance he knows where the Ark is?
ናይ በኒከ እንትን
እቲ መንበረ ታቦት እዚ
the Ark is somewhere hidden.
This place is completely isolated. It takes an impossible trek to make it here.
It would be a perfect place to hide the Ark, but based on everything we've learned, if the Ark isn't here, my gut says that it's hidden somewhere close.
Wow. I love somewhere close. You've got these cliffs that you like. I have such a fear of heights. I felt like we were jumping off that cliff. What were you thinking when you were walking along there?
That ledge is it's a little weird. The ledge is a little weird, and I love heights. I love mountain climbing, but I like to use my hands.
You know,
and when you're up on your legs, certainly, and then the wind picks up. You just feel like, well, this could go south very quickly.
Yeah, south, literally, right. It adds a whole new meaning to going south, straight down.
But I think, and just for your comfort level, in terms of first time you climb a face, or the first time you walk across that's when you feel this wobbliness. You feel this kind of, I could just fall. I might just fall.
Right.
But then after you do it a few times and you go get lunch and you come back and we do pickup shots, by the end you're kind of you feel like you could run across it. So it does, you work up a tolerance.
Excuse me, two things he said. You go get lunch. I wouldn't be able to eat for a week. Okay. And then you come back, you're more relaxed and comfortable. Are you crazy? Of course you are. You're an explorer. Listen, you just did it. I love the way they greeted you. And after, it was wonderful. And the paintings that were inside that. Was that like a cave in a cliff?
Yeah. So one thing, and we'll talk, because you mentioned you went to Lalibela. So one of the most amazing things about Ethiopia, particularly in Tigray, is you have these rock carved churches. A lot of these churches are carved from a single stone.
It's amazing. Into the ground, you go down.
Into the ground, or it might be like this. This is in a mountain.
Right.
That was not a cave. That was carved into using,
How did they do this?
It's absolutely phenomenal technology. And just one note, I know people say some advice when you're going to spots like this, always bring a gift, a small gift. And one thing I always have is either good frankincense and myrrh or some kind of really good in a nice little bag. And we brought that to him before we filmed there and said, this is the first time anyone's ever brought me a gift.
So hold up. People come there and they film and they don't bring a gift.
I don't think people film there. I think just in terms of, they go there for church. And that's why it was almost embarrassing is that, you have these elderly individuals who go up there for church every week.
That's
amazing. When I talk about climbing up the mountain, you didn't see a lot of the climbing to get there is fairly gnarly.
What is it, about 45 minutes, 50 minutes?
Yeah, going up these, and you can see there's actual footmarks from hundreds of years of people going up the same route. And so that's what like, well, we got to be able to not, we should be comfortable doing this. There's going to be like an 80-year-old man.
Yeah, an 80-year-old that can put you to shame. Exactly. Although culturally, when you get to people in that part of the world, it's unbelievable. They can be 85 or 90 years old. They've lived their lives climbing. They've lived their lives barefoot.
Second nature.
Yeah, it is really, really second nature. And we get there with our, fancy, thick Adidas or our hiking shoes, and we can't do it. Yeah. So they absolutely beautiful people. I love the artwork inside there, but yet you didn't find the ark.
We didn't find the ark, but I think that's the being able to go on that journey and have looking for the ark is almost more important than finding the ark. If we find the ark, what are we going to do? We're going to, get a pat on the back, get a check mark, but it's that going on that endless quest, being driven to find it, and the people you meet along the way, like the priest, like, all the people you're going to meet. That's the culture. That's the journey. That's the journey. That's the joy.
And I will say, and this is a quote from Justin, there were a lot of quotes, but the physical quest is what it's about for you. It is the exploration.
Yeah.
It's not the, in this culture, we're so trained to get that gold ring off the merry-go-round. And I realize that I live a lot of my life trying to go for that gold ring. Yeah. And you are definitely more focused on the process, the exploring, the doing of to get to the thing. But you don't need the actual thing, because what is the actual thing at the end of the day?
Then you just kind of have a moment like, hey, we did it. What's next?
Right. And then what's next?
If you don't enjoy, and that's one thing I say to people who want to get into filmmaking or exploration or even writing, I said, if you don't enjoy the process of it, without the accolades, without the, whatever it is, then don't bother doing it, because it's going to be very challenging. And if you're in the weeds of it, in the thick of it, and you're not like, this is it, this is what I want to do, even though I'm broke, not making, A, B, C, or D, I love this. The same with, I'm sure, people who are musicians and artists and poets. If you don't love the process, go to law school.
Exactly. The people I've had on this show, artists, entertainers, musicians, same thing as you, which is why, to me, exploration definitely falls into entertainment, because you are entertaining people with what you're doing, your storytelling. And where would, in this day and age, where would we be without our stories? Let's talk about, I've been dying to get to this with you, voodoo. You
Okay,
know,
sure.
I lived in Nigeria, and
Mhm.
that was the first place at 20 years old that really rocked my world. I lived in a village called Ife. I went to a festival called the Egungun Festival.
Yeah.
My friend Jide Abegunde, his grandfather was a local, I hate using the word medicine man, let's just say traditional doctor.
Yeah.
I saw things that could never, ever be explained.
Mm.
And I carry them with me to this day.
Yeah.
You have obviously, you've been, you went to a voodoo ceremony in the Bronx.
I went to many.
Yeah.
And
You were like an honored guest, though.
well, I have a dear friend, Mama Rose Carleen,
yeah.
and she's a voodoo queen who lives in Jamaica, Queens.
That's a priestess, right?
She's a priestess, yeah,
right?
Mambo, and
Mambo,
we've done many things together, and she buried me in a coffin alive in Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx for a ceremony.
I'm from the Bronx. I didn't know that kind of stuff went on.
It was definitely
Okay, tell me what that was
walking
like
into
for
the
you.
park with a coffin, digging a hole big enough to fit a coffin in without anyone noticing. I think
Right.
shows that we know very little about how many bodies are actually buried in our New York public park.
Actually, you're 100%
And I could
right.
see true that I was buried in the coffin. They put the lid on, and we went down, probably not 6 feet, about 2 feet.
You were in a shallow grave. We call it
a shallow grave.
Jason.
And I'll
Justin
tell
in a
you,
shallow grave.
you know, and I'm not claustrophobic, but when they nailed the coffin, the hood on the coffin,
They didn't nail the coffin closed.
Yeah, they did.
That was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
What happened when you heard that final?
Yeah.
That tapping.
So when they closed the coffin, you know, so I was buried in Van Cortlandt Park in a ceremony run by my friend. She's a very well respected voodoo queen from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, originally.
She is from Port-au-Prince. Yeah, I was
and one of my dear friend of mine. And so I'm in the coffin, and you feel tight because the way the coffin is shaped, it's pretty tight.
Right.
But you don't realize that the true claustrophobia came from the lid being this close, and you want to like put your arms out, like you want to push off the lid, but you know you can't. And everything's saying, well, my friends are out there, Rose is out there, nothing's going to happen to me. But your primordial brain is saying, get out of the coffin.
But
and you're trying to fool yourself to not be claustrophobic and like just accept your fate, because you know you're coming. I'm like, what if somebody shoots everyone up there and then I'm in the coffin? Like, what if you're putting all these situations where
then you couldn't get out?
And you hear that when you hear the dirt hit the wood, it's it's the loudest sound I've ever heard in my life. I didn't know it was gonna be that. It was like, and you just hear this smashing.
You heard the shovels, in the rocks. Right? And the shovels.
But when they poured the dirt down, hitting the wood, it was so loud. And I was only in there for 15 minutes.
Okay, wait a minute. He just throws this stuff out here. I was only in the coffin for 15 minutes, listening to the sound of the dirt hitting the wood. Nobody would say that. You understand
it gets quieter because you got the first dirt, and then it's just
buried alive.
So it's a beautifully horrific.
It's beautiful. Wait, it's beautiful yet horrific at the same time.
You should definitely at least experience
very poetic,
it once.
Right? Everybody should experience. Okay, how did it make you feel? Because you are a very powerful person, and suddenly your power was taken away from you.
I think it's important to subject yourself to those situations because a lot of time the loss of your power is attributed to fear of the unknown. And a lot of things with the swims I do or whatever it is, it's putting myself in those powerless situations to understand, to address that and look it in the eye, in the face. And then the next time it's not as scary.
So you're actually projecting ahead for the not as scary the next time. You want to reach the level of it being not as scary. Whereas most people I'm somewhat fearless, nowhere near like this guy, but I couldn't even wrap my head around the next time. The thing that you do in open water, the swimming in the open water, this great Arctic mission, the swim mission that you have coming up. It's August 5th, is it?
Well, we're going to fly out August 6th, 7th.
Okay.
In a 2-person plane. Emiliano's going to go commercial. Visit Greenland. Thank you. They bought his flight for him. Really kind of them.
Yes. Thank you, Greenland.
And we're all going to fly up to Kanuk, Greenland. And that's where I'm going to try this swim.
I love that he says he's going to try this swim.
I'll do my best.
You did the swim in Scotland.
Yes.
And I want to talk about that because that was about whiskey.
Yes.
The whiskey swim. And that swim, were you doing that to prepare you for going from Canada to Greenland? Was that like the precursor, or was that about whiskey?
The swims kind of grew. I'll give you a quick 1-minute kind of description of how these swims.
You can give us two.
I swam as a young person through elementary school and high school, and was a big part of my life. And then when I went to school, I went more into filmmaking and history. But years ago, like 2013, I had a show on the Cooking Channel and Food Network where I was basically eating, and I was the culinary ambassador of the Bronx, and everywhere I went,
I remember when you did that. Right?
It was just my life was food, and I love food.
You love food.
People who have six packs and talk, oh, you should just control yourself. I don't think they really love food. Don't you know?
Justin doesn't care when he's swimming if he's got a little extra hanging over his swimsuit.
Well, it's to keep me warm.
Right. That's why we have that. I love that.
You've got lean leopard power and you've got polar bear power. Right. I have polar bear power.
You have polar bear. You're not a lean leopard. You're a polar bear.
Polar bear.
I totally love that. So you did your first swim was Scotland.
No, so the first swim was my show was done. I was overweight. My cholesterol was high, and I said, "What am I going to do? I'm getting out of the food writing world." And so I said, "I'm going to swim the length of the Bronx." No one's ever swam the length of the Bronx. So I swam from Yonkers out to the, to the very bottom in Clayson Point, 8 miles. And it was a big news. Man swims the Bronx River. And every year after that, I did another swim. And I lost 50 pounds. I was
from swimming.
And so everyone's like, what are you going to do next year? So then I swam Newark against gang violence. And then I swam Camden, New Jersey against, gun violence or whatever it was. Every year there was a different swim. And then slowly it got bigger till we did the swim around Isle of Scotland.
Wow. And that, okay, but I don't want to gloss over this. Every single swim that you've done and most of what you've done is to raise awareness. You're raising money.
Yeah.
You're raising awareness and you're raising money. And I can't think of a more beautiful way to do philanthropy than you're using yourself in such an unusual way. Why do you think it's so important to you to give back?
Well, I think with the swims, everybody wins. I get in shape. I stay in shape. I stay strong. It gets me away from editing or whatever I'm doing. That's kind of, in one place. So it's like, getting ready, like, oh, I'm going to be in this wedding in 6 months. I better be able to fit into the tux. The swim is the thing that's, making me like, wait, I've got to be an athlete and not, a bacchanalian drinking, eating monster.
My friend calls it a chunk feta.
Whatever it is, yeah. It's just like just enjoy, too much. Right. And it's that thing that keeps me disciplined. So, and it's something that I think naturally there are people who are great climbers, great runners. I'm a terrible runner. I'm a terrible cyclist, but water and swimming has been something I've been naturally good at.
And that's always your strong suit.
It's just what your thing is.
Right.
Like I said, I have a friend who could not run for 2 years, and then he could be like, I'm going to do a 5K in a week. And that's how I am with swimming.
Got it. It's something that you can do. But now the Scotland swim, it was about whiskey.
It was about whiskey.
And you now have your own product.
Yes. The quick thing I'll say about the Scotland swim was the Great Isle of Swim.
Yes.
And that's like Islay.
Islay, right.
Yeah. Lafroig, Lagavulin, Ardbeg. These are my favorite whiskeys. They're very smoky. They're very peaty. And I wanted to, when you go to the Explorers Club, you have a good glass of your favorite spirit. I said to myself, wouldn't it be nice to be part of that legacy?
Right.
So no one had ever swam 100 miles around that island. So myself and fellow member Chad Anderson, who I met, right, and Johnny Mundell, we said, let's do a swim around this island. And we filled up a 50-gallon barrel with whiskey from all 8 distilleries and then auctioned it off for charity. I think that is brilliant. And then what it turned into is every time you have a glass of Lefroy, you know what that water felt like. Right. You know what it felt like to be hit by the jellyfish or be washed again. You feel like you earned the taste of what was in the glass. Right. And you were hit by the jellyfish. And the conditions were horrible. Swimming out there. But in the and there is a film that exists about this. What I loved, every place you stopped, there were groups of people there to welcome you. And it's so much fun. It's that really camaraderie. Well, the camaraderie and putting yourself in these harsh situations and knowing that you have to adapt and find the salt within yourself to get through it or destroy yourself. Right. But it's giving yourself these challenges, especially as adults, because we tend to go through rites of passages as young people where we want to fight everyone or do this thing. Yeah, when you become an adult, you can get stuck. Well, that's it. It's just like, okay, I'm going to go do this 9 to 5, where you have to keep challenging yourself or you'll become stationary and just accept, once again, these rules. And, well, now I'm a dad, so I've got to drop my daughter off at ice skating and I can't do A, B, C, or D because now I have to be responsible. And then that's when you lose your forward momentum as a spirit. Well, somebody like you is never going to lose their spiritual momentum because your whole personality is what it's about.
Okay.
So-
This has been sitting. No, I have a confession to make. This has been sitting in front of me the entire time. This is Justin's own. It's called the birch sap spirit.
So it's a birch sap spirit,
Birch
and
sap
this
spirit.
came out of, as an explorer, as a writer, and as a person who does some entertainment. A lot of times you feast or famine. You feast or famine, and I said I really want something where it's a generational business, something to pass on to my daughter,
I love
and
it.
that could be. And so this was our new alcohol company, which is Fornal Forests, which is my last name. I started with my father, and it's we've been tapping our birch trees for over 10 years, and the birch sap is very much like maple sap, like you make maple syrup from. But if you've ever heard of birch beer,
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So this is basically, we're making birch beer, and then we're distilling it to make 100 proof spirits, which somewhere between gin and mezcal, I've been told. And you put it in your freezer, and you drink it when it's ice cold, and the flavor is all natural, and it's coming from the inner layer of the inner bark of the tree, called the cambium layer.
Okay.
And basically with any tree,
I knew none of this.
if you think about any medicines that are taken from trees, or it's usually taken from that inner bark or the root bark.
Right.
And that's where the flavor is coming from. Aspirin comes from the cambium layer of the willow tree. So many of the medicines we have today came from finding some way to get the chemical compound from the inner barks of trees. So that's what's in this glass, and that's what's giving you this almost wintergreen flavor.
And it's amazing to me what you've just said, because indigenous people know this naturally in any part of the world that you go to, whether it be any of the tribal people in Ethiopia or the Inuit people, they all know this. They know how to get the medicines or anything they need from the plants and the trees around them.
Yeah. And someone asked, is that white birch? So we use this sap from white birch, black birch, silver birch, golden birch. A lot of them are kind of interchangeable, but the bark that we use is coming from the black birch.
Black birch.
I grew up coming up from the bus stop. We have a long dirt driveway, and every day I'd break off a little birch twig and chew on it. And we were told growing up that those were Native American toothbrushes. And that's what people use.
I've heard that, of course.
And
right. You use
So I grew up with this flavor that's in this glass, and I always was such a special, kind of clean, beautiful, cooling.
I'm going to let you know if it's clean and beautiful. Now, one thing before we take a sip.
Yes.
Does it give you a buzz right away?
This will give you several buzzes.
100 proof.
And people have had, well, it's also what I think we're figuring out is that some of the medicinal qualities that are in the bark do come through in the distillate. So you do get intoxicated. It is 100 proof.
I'm going to get intoxicated.
But there's something else. There's like a beautiful kind of warming tingling that people have described.
Warm tingling. And before I want to welcome, thank you everyone who tuned in today. Hannah Q has Justin swam with whales. Well,
I think you're saying when we go to Greenland.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great question. So the swim.
She's from Sweden.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. The swim is from Pim Island to Etta. So if anyone looks up those areas on their map, it's way in the north of Greenland.
Got it.
Once we go into the open water, there will be polar bears, which will be mainly in the shallows. And if they're
do you think they're going to swim with you? Maybe.
Well, we're being led by a team of Inuit hunters. So if we are in danger, the hunters, they're there to hunt, and they can hunt, and it's not our job to stop them.
Right. It is part of their culture. I do want to bring that.
Yeah.
And everyone knows I'm a real feel-goody kind of animal defender and all of that. And I want to talk with Justin after we sip about the Inuit people and why what he's doing is so important to that culture. Marty Abusher, I know you want us to drink up. Margot Channing, thank you for tuning in. And I see a bunch of other people on here, but Wendy is so technically famished. I don't even know how to scroll the comments. I'm telling you, I'm lost with Tym Moss. But you know what? What I lack in technical, I make up with drinking. Cheers.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be talking with everyone.
Great to have you on the show today. Okay. Oh my God. Justin, my throat's on fire.
That's good. It's killing. I know there's an uptick in COVID, so this will.
No, do you think that this is like there is an uptick in COVID? Should I drink the whole thing?
I would.
Am I going to be able to continue with the rest of the show? Am I going to get all goofy?
No, I think it's less than a shot. So I think
less than a shot. Here we go. Cheers. Oh.
Very nice. Healing, medicinal, cleansing.
It just burnt off the layer of skin in my throat. Oh my God.
And it is nice when it's ice cold.
I'm sure
it
it
should be a little
is.
colder. Have with smoked fish or with oysters.
Smoked fish. Next time we'll have it with smoked fish.
Amazing.
Evan Lawrence, wonderful show. He wants to hear so much
Thank
more.
you, Evan.
Well, our friend Evan is very connected to Native American people.
fantastic.
He was actually part of his life. He was raised with them. So I want to talk about the Inuit people.
Yes.
This swim that you're doing from Canada to Greenland, you're going to be having for your guides the Inuit people.
It's an Inuit-led team out of Kanuk, which is Qaanaq.
Right.
And this is one of the northernmost settlements in the world. And these are individuals who survived for thousands of years. Using not much more than sea mammals.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about using walrus intestines to make parkas out of, fueling their lamps using seal oil, everything.
Right.
There's
the fat. They use the fat of the sea. Yeah, they use
once we get above this, in the Arctic Circle, there's really no trees.
Right.
Everything is in the summer. You have a very short summer with very low shrubs,
right.
a few berries, but most of what we're getting is from the sea, from being hunters.
And they have done it for thousands of years.
Yes.
But I think, if we're going to talk about them and why you're doing this, we have to talk about climate change.
Yes.
Because climate change, this is something people need to, like, we're all being affected here, right? With the extreme weather, wildfires and all of that. But you have to think that the risk for entire cultures now, like the Inuit people, could be completely wiped out because of climate change, their whole way of life and how they survive, what they eat.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
the very food they eat.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one very scary fact that happened in real time. I was supposed to do this swim 4 days from right now.
Oh my gosh.
4 days from right now. And obviously we were in the end of May. Yeah. And the body of water, what happens is we have something called the Nares Strait. You've got Canada, you've got Greenland, and they're very close together. At one point, it's only 11 miles apart.
Right.
All the sea ice, the old sea ice, once a year breaks away and washes down. But right at the top of Smith Sound, it freezes and basically makes a dam.
Okay.
It's an ice arch,
right.
An ice wall. And then you have beneath that, you have all this open water surrounded by ice, known as the North Water Polynya. And this is the center of hunting. This is the center of animals coming and feeding. For the second time in 4 years, we were watching as soon as the lights came on in the Arctic, we saw it did not form. So that whole area is just a mess of ice right now. Broken ice. You can't get out there to hunt. The animals can't get there to feed.
Right.
So that's why my swim was moved to August, because the situation that should have been there, as it's been for the last 10,000 years, did not happen again for the first time in the second time within 4 years that this ice arch, this thing that's been forming for thousands of years, did not, because of global warming, because of climate change.
And this is a huge thing that Justin's just talked about, because think about it. The animals cannot eat. The people cannot eat. And, it's so frustrating.
We're watching in real time.
We're watching it in real time. But thank you, because you're going to call attention to it by doing this swim. I remember interviewing an Inuit woman. She came to the Explorers Club. She was a lawyer, but she lived with the Inuit people, and she was from Canada. And I said to her, she was so generous in the way she spoke and about the land and the animals and people and forgiveness and all of that. And I said, how do you keep when your culture is being attacked? Because for all of us here, right, in New York, LA, wherever you are, our culture is, it is being attacked in some ways, but not like the Inuit, where everything's being taken away from them. I said to her, well, how do you keep from becoming bitter about what's happening to your people? And she said to me, if I become bitter, all the animals will go away. And I will never forget that, because that's such a concept that they think that, and they're probably right. They're probably right that if they put that what we call bad juju out there, right here, now we're back in those belief systems of spirituality. And yes, Justin, I took you down another rabbit hole with this one, but it's true. They believe that. Okay, so they still have to keep their culture going. And when someone like you does a swim from Canada to Greenland and you're working with their people, you are calling attention to who they are and what they're about.
Well, I also think that swimming is fairly low impact on the environment.
Right.
And we think about the English Channel.
Right.
We think about, there's like the 5 or 6 big swims around the world. And those are our industries.
Yeah.
Those are industries. Swimming the Strait of Gibraltar is a major industry, and there's only a few outfitters you can go through, and it costs a lot of money for people to do this. So if I'm able to achieve this swim and say, we're doing the logistics of how could a person do this? How can it be done if it works and I'm successful? We've set up the blueprint for other business model for the people of Canuck, as opposed to people being like, hey, I want to go kill a polar bear. Be like, no, I want to go and swim this. Or I want to kiteboard this. Ways that are low impact ways for people to say, why would I go up here? Well, come see this culture while it's still here and engage the culture and either do the swim or do the whatever it is, engage Smith Sound in a way that's non-destructive.
Exactly.
And beautiful, and come up, you know, and especially as cold water swimming and getting in cold water is becoming a bit more in fashion, I think.
Of course.
Because of all the case studies showing that it is beneficial. I think people, if we make it easy and show them the structure by which to do it, it could become a fairly popular place to visit in a good way.
But that's what you're doing. It's very low impact ecotourism.
Yeah.
And I think you've just hit on a brilliant solution, as opposed to, why are the Inuit people killing polar bears? When I hear that kind of stuff, and we hear it all the time, you know, we hear it with elephants, we hear it with rhinos. We know families poach. Why do they poach? They've got 10 kids. They don't have any way of having an economy. We need to all know that we and the people that live in these places are able to respond if we give them a business model. And that's what you're doing. So
absolutely,
kudos to you.
But also traditional hunting, it will be shown even by conservation groups that traditional hunting has basically zero impact on animal populations.
Traditional hunting.
If we're talking about even people like the Hadzabe, who are one of the oldest tribes in East Africa, in Tanzania, they are true hunters and gatherers. They're one of the last on the planet. They're allowed to kill whatever animal they want, because if they were to kill a giraffe, they would move their entire village to that giraffe carcass until everything is gone,
used up.
As opposed to somebody coming who's, you know, some rich person flying in who wants to kill a beautiful animal and take a picture, as if using a high-powered rifle is some sort of achievement. You know, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So that's why I said there is room for traditional hunting by the people who have been doing it for thousands of years. And if studies have shown, this is not destructive at all to these populations.
It is not destructive, and it's as it should be. I can tell you, in Ethiopia, the tribal people, what blew me away, the way they dressed, and they were like this every day. They used every part of the animal. The ram horn was a headpiece. Skins, they wore the skins. They eat the animal. So they're doing what they need to do to keep their culture going. I have had my eye. You brought this fabric. Tell me the story with this fabric. Justin brought all of these. It's like show and tell. Do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, when we had show and tell in school? Okay.
Well, one of my favorite things is ancient textiles and collecting and writing about and preserving. And a piece I did for National Geographic was all about the natural dyes of Oaxaca, Mexico. And this is cotton that has been dyed using nothing more than snails.
How do you do that?
So you would take, this is, I think, 2 skeins of cotton, but you'd have this draped over your shoulder if you're a snail dyer. You'd walk out into the ocean, and you'd be taking these small puta snails, and you squeeze them and milk them, and this yellow solution comes out. And then as it's exposed to the light, it slowly turns blue. And then within 2 hours, it turns this beautiful purple.
That is absolutely brilliant. And the first thing I did, because you had told me earlier that you had something made from snails, it doesn't smell bad.
Not bad anymore.
No,
I purposely did not wash it because I think the smell is important.
I was like, oh my God, I'm even wearing it. It's fabulous.
And this is, so this is what the Mixtec people would use to make something like this. This is a pozahuanco. This is a traditional wrap that the Mixtec women of
where are they from?
In Oaxaca.
In Oaxaca.
Would wear this with nothing else. They would usually wear this with no shirts. This is the traditional clothing. And if you take a look at that, Phenotype de Don Luis. So this is the snails.
It's the snails again. My God.
And this is a small insects here, and then indigo, of course. So this is a cochineal, which a lot of us in the audience have probably had in red food dye over the years. And certainly even a lot of fabrics in America will still use this as a dye. They still use it.
Wow.
And then you have the classic indigo, and these are the true. Now I did not bring it, but I have one of these that's made with all synthetic, and you can see the difference.
Right, of course.
The purple is super purple, the red is super red, but this
is natural.
These are what ancient colors would have looked like. It would not have been the red that we know today.
It smells like alcohol.
Well, funny enough, some of the birch spilled in the car, and
there you go.
What happens when you have a bag with all your things all together,
with your bag of
around.
tricks? I just love it. This is so beautiful too. Which of these colors has made you said an insect? Which
this magenta, this kind of and by adding lime juice or a different mordant, you can turn this into like a blood red. And this was, funny enough, this red was considered the greatest treasure that was stolen by indigenous people of Mexico by the Spanish conquistadors after gold.
Wow.
First it was gold, and
Never
then it
knew
was
that.
the red. And this was actually, Spain had red on lockdown in Europe in the 1500s because they had found it here, and they did not want to let the French or anyone else know where the red was coming from, because if they wanted to buy a little scarf that was this beautiful red, that would be, it'd be trade. Trade was trade.
Right.
We have something you don't have, so you're going to buy it from us.
And that makes it really special. Are you smelling
like
the
like
snails?
Kind of a briny garlickiness to it.
Ah, the ocean.
And this would have been just so. If we're going back a little farther to the Phoenicians, several thousand years ago,
let's go back to
they would have used on the Mediterranean in what is now Tyre, Lebanon. They would have used a very similar snail, and Cleopatra's sails of her ship were dyed using the Murex snail. And this was Tyrian purple, named after Tyre, Lebanon. Julius Caesar would have worn a robe almost identical to this,
made from snails,
and no one else could wear it.
We're talking hundreds of snails that you have.
We're talking tens of thousands of snails. And so just so the mixed technique is to milk the snail. It does not injure the snail. It kind of pisses it off a little bit. They put it back in the ocean. It comes back. The ancient Tyrian way is they'd have these pits and get 10,000 snails, put them in there, and crush them up.
I don't want to think
so just showing it was a far more destructive method.
Right. But I didn't know when you said the milking of the snails.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that, because I thought they killed them to do that.
They did not. No.
They do not. So it's humane, and you get this is beautiful color.
And I think I'm going to do an embroider like a white jacket with that.
Oh, how great. So, or get an entire jacket in this color.
Yeah, I know.
This beautiful lavender. Well, while we're talking about insects, I read a piece about you. There's a cockroach is it in Vietnam?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about like squeezing. There's no, because this is fascinating. You know what? We're all on this earth. Think about the insects on this earth, right? We live with them, and it's not just like regular cockroaches. Insects all have a purpose, as we do.
Yeah.
So tell me about this particular.
This is my first expedition. This is what got me into wanted to be a professional explorer.
The cockroach.
I was reading. I was I think I was still in college. Was reading the Guinness Book of World Records about. It said the world's rarest condiment, and it said caquong. Caquong is, and it looked just like this. It just looked like a clear liquid. But it was the thoracic exudate of Lathoceras indicus, meaning it's this exudate that comes from a
mouthful.
And it's the giant water bug. So I'm sure we've all in New York have seen a water bug the size of a small lobster.
Right.
And it's similar to that, also known as a toe biter, because they're tough little they'll eat
you can't kill them. They're very hard to kill. You can be hitting them and they don't die. Right.
And if anyone, it is a relative of the stink bug. So if anyone's seen a stink bug and crushed it, you smell that really strong aroma. Lathoceras indicus has this perfume that the males produce to attract the females, like a pheromone. And going back thousands of years in Vietnam, people would extract this from thousands of bugs and get it, and then add it to a sauce, add it to wine, and during even like the Vietnam conflict in North Vietnam, when people were fleeing, this was their quote unquote liquid asset. You had a few vials of caquong, it would be worth hundreds of dollars. You'd leave everything else, but if you took this caquong, it was very valuable if it was truly made from insects, as opposed to just like everything now, artificial.
The synthetic one.
Yeah.
So did this happen in a restaurant, or somebody prepared this for you? How do we taste caquong? Is it caquong?
You can go. Yeah, if you want to taste what caquong tastes like, the easiest way is to go to a Thai or a Vietnamese market and ask for Mang Da, which is MANG space DA, Mang Da.
Mang Da.
And that has like almost this candy, watermelon, sour apple flavor to it. And that's the real smell of it. I've smelled it straight from the bug, and smells like a Jolly
candy,
Rancher.
Watermelon, apple.
Jolly Rancher, yeah.
It smells like
And they sell the artificial one here in any Thai market in New York.
It tastes like a Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, and like I said, the best way to experience it is make a caquong martini. It's just make a martini and put 1 or 2 drops.
Right.
And it's very powerful tasting.
So where do I have to go to get this martini? I've been drinking Cosmos. Now I may switch and try this caquong.
Yeah.
Will it light you up the way this birch did?
Yeah, it certainly will. No, it's a good question. Why does it attract humans? it was just something I think that, like most things, of course, it's thought to be an aphrodisiac, but I think in a lot of my studies been about historic aphrodisiacs. Usually, the rarer the item, the more powerful it is.
Of course.
Also in dark magics, the rarer the thing we're sacrificing, the more powerful it is. But scientifically, no.
Scientifically, right. But then you get into that whole thing. Oh my God, we're back full circle. Then we're getting into that thing scientifically versus spiritual. Yeah. And can a person's belief, what goes on in their mind, actually bring power to the object they believe in?
Yeah. But if you're with somebody who you're attracted to, and all of a sudden, we're going to try this really amazing Khao Kwang Martini, chances are the idea of it and the story of it in itself is...
Justin's going to pull out a giant water bug. I can't think of a less romantic thing to get somebody interested in. Here, let's squeeze the juice out of it.
Well, there's the interesting twist of why it's called Khao Kwang. And I think this is so... The Emperor of Vietnam met with the Emperor, and this is, of course, folklore, so don't take this as historic fact. Emperor Da met with the Emperor of China, and he had all these things. These are the gifts of my land. And in them was the Khao Kwang. And he said, what is that? He said, well, this is the essence of the cinnamon weevil. He didn't say of this giant water bug.
He didn't say a big-ass water bug.
Yeah, but the Emperor of China knew what it was. And so he said, you're lying to me. There is no such thing as this cinnamon weevil. So Khao Kwang, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it a little off, so it's not right.
It's better than what I would do to it.
But basically it means Da's embarrassment, his humiliation.
Humiliation, right.
So it goes back to exactly what you're saying of, well, the idea of this thing being the juice from a water bug is not an aphrodisiac in itself. Right. So we transform it to something else. It's this beautiful butterfly tears. Then suddenly we're like, oh, okay, I'll try it.
Oh, I love that. That is very poetic. Butterfly tears.
So Da's embarrassment is exactly what you're kind of mentioning here, is that perhaps, it would be sexy if it wasn't from...
It would be sexy if it was... I love that. That's the line of the day. It would be sexy if it didn't come from a water bug.
Exactly.
Justin, just tell us what's up next for you.
Well, okay, a few things. We're going to have a busy few months, but top of the palette, and why I'm probably not going anywhere I have to train is for the Greenland swim.
Right.
There's few things could come out of that swim if I get lucky and the currents are with me. It's 25 miles through below freezing water. God, it would be amazing if I could do it in one shot. If not, I'm not going against anyone but myself in the ocean. So if it takes 5 days and I've got to start at the exact place every day, that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to give it my best, but the ocean's going to decide what happens.
Right. And on the site that you have for this, the greatarcticswim.com, what I love is he's swimming through water surrounded by ice. I got freezing and paralyzed just looking at it. It's great. It was a great visual.
It's an interesting thing because when you're out there, you have this strange sense of playing. You're like in this place you're not supposed to be, which is in the Hudson River when it's filled with ice. But once you get comfortable with it, it's like playing in the snow or playing in like a sandbox. You're walking on ice. The ice is breaking, but it's okay.
Right.
I got the wetsuit on. I have the gear. I'm comfortable.
You're ready.
Yeah. And then we will be doing a project in Somalia and Somaliland, hopefully in September. And then October, November, the thing I've been wanting to do for 10 years is this project about ethnic minorities in Iraq.
Love it.
And I'm meeting a gentleman tonight here at the Explorers Club from Iraq who's here. He's speaking at the UN this afternoon.
Excellent.
And then this project, I'm telling you, I think will be my favorite thing I've ever done, because when we think of Iraq, a lot of times, unfortunately, we just think of what we're told by the media and about Islamic extremism, but this is the birthplace of many religions.
Absolutely.
That they still remain there. You've got the Mandans, the Mandaeans, you have the Yazidis, and they have these beautiful ancient religions, many of who are on their last few thousand people. So we want to go there and celebrate these cultures, tell their stories, and let people also see that Iraq is one of the cradles of civilization.
It is cradles of civilization.
The written word.
Beautiful antiquities there as well.
Yeah.
Which you listen, when you're doing the work you do, you're calling attention to all of this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
People can follow you on your website.
I think Instagram is the best.
Instagram.
It's at Justin_Fornal, only because I don't do too many things on social media, but that's a place where it's very easy for me as a
Instagram,
technical
yeah.
dinosaur.
You put up that one picture.
I take
on
a picture,
Instagram,
I put it
right.
up, I can say a few things, and I can keep it moving as opposed to.
No, you brought up a good point. I use all the social media venues, but lots of people love Instagram. For someone like you, for a real explorer, incredible picture, a comment or two, call it a day and move on. Thank you so much for being here today, Justin.
My pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who joined us. And if I didn't get to read your comment, I just want you to know when I leave here, I will see all your comments. They show up on Tym Moss Facebook Live, and they will also show up on Wendy Stuart TV for If These Walls Could Talk. So I get to see everything. And if you know me, I always comment back. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.